Okay. I hope I don't give you so much peace that you all fall asleep. Just enough to keep you awake. This morning I was late coming to church, and it was a real trial of the topic I had to speak on. I had to maintain peace. I kept felt like I had to tell my wife to hurry up and just get out of the door, and we're late, and I'm preaching today. And how can this be on this day of all Sundays? But I restrained myself. She doesn't think so much, but but so that I tried. My driving was anything but peaceful, but I had to make it as fast as I could. Uh, but it's an interesting topic. When I was thinking about it, I was actually thinking I'll start the sermon by saying shalom, but I thought that'll be a little cheesy for me to do that. But it's a greeting, right? Shalom, or the Arabic greeting is salam wa alaikum, or in India we say salam. And it's interesting how cultures and significant bulk of the global culture uses shalom or peace as a greeting, and it's almost like you want to wish someone peace above all other things, and as if that means that could be like the highest form of blessing that you could give to someone. Like, you don't say riches, when you meet someone. You don't say I don't know, you don't say prosperity, or you don't say wealth, when you meet someone. You say peace. And so it's like above all things, peace. In whatever situation you're in, if you have peace, that's the highest form of blessing I can give you. So interesting that cultures have valued peace to be that. So what is peace? I thought it's just good for us to maybe start off with a bit of just describing what peace means. It's a very broad term. Like, different people will have different meanings or different interpretations of what peace means. So if I can just ask you, what do you think? And you can just shout out words of sentences that you feel uh, for you means peace. Shanti, okay. The lack of peace, the bomb blast. So we're actually coming to lack of peace later. I'm sorry, someone else said yoga. Okay, yoga as a means of attaining peace. Okay. Anything else? Calmness. Okay, to be calm. That is peace. Sorry? Mind is at rest. Okay, mind is at rest. So that is peace. State of rest. Okay. Being in church is peace. Wow. Few more. Free of tension. Someone here? Library. Quiet time. Okay, good. So I think so. I've just listed a few myself, and I think just covers what you guys have said. Calmness, harmony. We say peace and harmony. Quietness, relaxation, rest, being healthy. Being healthy is when you're not healthy, you're not at peace. Obviously, being in a good relationship. How many of us think this would mean peace for us? Few hands, all young ones. Okay. Uh, Being loved, being loved is peace. Not being anxious, as someone said. Being happy, confident, fulfilled, successful, to be successful. So some people think if I'm successful, I'll finally be at peace. I can just relax, I can retire, I can do what I want. If only I just reach that state of success. Okay, so what is not peace? What is like the opposite of peace for you? War, noise, Mumbai local, sorry, sadness, operation, sorry. Just say that again. What else? What else? What else? Sorry? Excitement. Anxiety. Okay, anxiety. What else? Come on. Exam. Any more? Traffic, busy day at work. Okay, okay. Again? Duty. Guilty. Okay, being guilty. Okay, so anxiety, I've got stress, anger. When I'm angry, I'm not at peace. Uncertainty, when we're uncertain, we don't know what's going on, where is life taking me, you're not at peace. So, same thing, insecurity, broken relationship, conflict, threat. When you're under threat, your job's under threat, or your academic career, your future is under threat, or your life even maybe. Tension, someone said fear, worry, violence, war, confusion, being lost. Yeah, so if you're lost, then you're not at peace. Okay, so these are just, good that we did this. I'm just going to show two clippings now, and just to get like maybe a Hollywood perspective of what they think peace is like. Sorry? Yeah. Yeah.
Expectations,
Yeah.
then we must say that we are not having peace.
Yeah.
Like maybe there are certain people who
Yeah.
love war.
Yeah.
In that case,
Yeah.
being in war is peace for you.
Is peace for them. Yeah. So it's different.
Living up to expectation is having peace.
Yeah, good. So it's different for different people, right? So that's why it's good to, I wanted to do this. All of us, take peace to mean different things for ourselves. And so that's why it's good to do this. Okay, so these clippings, and I hope they work. Don't work. No, I'm not at peace. So the peacemaker _0. It's an _0 file. Yeah, this one. Okay. Can you have the sound?
Initial projections indicate the nuclear fallout will affect all of...
It wasn't an accident, sir. This was a terrorist act. I'm gonna need a military liaison with intel background and Russian contacts. And make sure he's willing to take orders from a woman.
Lieutenant Colonel Tom DeVoe reporting as ordered, ma'am. This is how it works. Good guys, it's us. We chase the bad guys. And they don't wear black hats. When you've been the boss for more than 2 weeks, you'll know that.
3 weeks.
If I wanted to steal nuclear weapons, would you be the guy to talk to? Would you be that guy? Should have taken the money, Hans.
This is your big plan?
This is my plan.
You will not take action without authorization.
Now, what do you think I am, some gung-ho, stupid son of a...
No, I don't think you're stupid.
My enthusiasm sometimes gets the best of me. Any birds find this cargo truck, boom.
There are people out there who don't care about money, and for them it is about rage, frustration, hatred. They feel pain and they're determined to share it with the world.
The guy got away with a bomb. Now, you are not in Washington anymore. You are in the real world.
We have a weapon of mass destruction coming into the United States. Shoot it! Take the shot!
Take the shot! It's not our war. It is now.
This is _0.
Inner peace. Inner peace. Inner peace. Would whoever is making that flapping sound quiet down? Inner. Inner peace. Inner peace. Oh, inner peace.
Master Shifu! Master Shifu, what do we got?
Whoa! Awesome! How did you do that? Inner peace.
Inner peace. That's cool. Inner peace of what? So that's it? I just need inner peace? My innards are already super, super peaceful, so all I need to do is just get this thing going. Inner peace? You're going down. Now show.
Okay. So the first clip was of this guy called the Peacemaker, the hero of that movie. That movie is called The Peacemaker, and so he's going around shooting people. He's telling other people to shoot people, telling them to take out trucks and bomb and all sorts of things. But he's a peacemaker. That's one interpretation of what making peace is like. And then there's Master Shifu and his attempts at inner peace, and then of course Po thinks to mean inner peace of something. So I thought, just trying to get different perspectives on, what people will interpret peace as, and how peace can be achieved. Now, when we talk of peace, we talk at two levels. We talk like at a global level, like at country level, like nations are at war or they're at peace, or so it's about countries, about the military, or we talk about communities and between maybe religions or cultures, people, and if they're getting along, we say that is peace. Basically anything that people who don't get along with each other, if they are getting along, and then we say so that is peace. But today I thought we'll talk about personal peace. So peace at an individual level. Peace at our level. And my belief is that if there is frustration within, if we are not peaceful within, then you might be looking something like this. You're just frustrated, you're a little angry, you're irritated, and then you might want to take it out on someone. You feel like punching someone, and then you might look like this. And then if you're the sort of guy who has like powerful connections and you have an army at your disposal, then you might be inclined to go to war, because you don't feeling that peace. You think to achieve it, I have to go to war, and before you know it, you've got yourself a war. So and it's just a suggestion that I feel that all conflict, even at a global level, at some has its root on just individuals not being at rest with a situation or with themselves and feeling the need to do something about it externally, and that's what leads to conflict at a one-to-one level, at an individual level, in our relationships, in our families, in our communities, and then at a national level, at a global level sometimes. So we want to talk just about peace at a individual level. Now, what are some of the things that we do to attain peace? Okay, just to make that point, the absence of peace on the inside leads to conflict on the outside. Now, one thing that cannot be denied is that all of us are pursuing peace. Okay, whatever we think peace means for us, we are pursuing peace. And if from the first slide we said peace for some of us means happiness, for some of us means being in a good relationship, or feeling loved, or being successful, or being secure, or being healthy, and all of us are pursuing one of these things. And the goal is that to achieve these things so that you feel that okay, now I don't have to worry, I don't have to be anxious, I'm at rest, I've kind of achieved some peace. So it's undeniable that all of us are pursuing peace in our own way. Some of us feel that maybe meditation is the thing that is going to get me there. Some of us believe that we just take time off, we go somewhere and we connect with nature, we take a vacation, and that for us is something that's of peace. Or in Mumbai we have this we have Marine Drive and we have the sea, and that's like a great getaway for us. Anytime you're just feeling a little bogged down, You just, take off, spend some time at the sea, and that kind of refreshes you, that kind of gives you some peace. Food sometimes, it's a source of peace for some people, and just something that you like, a snack, and in this case muffins. I personally don't like muffins. My wife likes them, so this is peace for her. I would prefer something like chai. So there's some days when you feel that bas ek chai ho jaye. You feel like I've had enough, but now I'll have one chai. And at least for that 2 minutes when you're drinking that chai, you're at peace. Whatever happens before and after that may be the same. But when you're having that chai, and especially this kind of cutting chai on the road, you feel this is good. So different things. We do different things. Just to get to peace. There are more serious things that we might do, and money is like motivation for us. We think if I can build enough money, and then I can have like a balance in my bank, and that will give me security and peace, and with that I can assure myself of health and doctors and insurance and all these kind of things. Insurance, of course, the ads, the way they tell you is, if you haven't had insurance, if you don't have insurance, you have to be very scared. Be very scared that you're not insured. So they will advertise to get yourself insured, your family insured, your car insured, your house insured, because anything can happen at any time, So maybe, those of us who are prudent, and it's a good idea, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but, we feel that if I've insured everything, then maybe I'll be at peace, then I'm covered from all sides, and then maybe I can be at peace. So these are some of the ways we pursue peace. So I just want to kind of take a break here, from this thought, and then go to the Bible, and I just want to take this story, and it's so apt because we've been singing about it. People who came up and spoke, they spoke along similar lines, and this is a story in the Bible, and we're going to see what that tells us, about peace. So I don't know if this is clear, but I'll just read it. Is this clear to people? It's clear. Okay, cool. So I'll just read it. So that evening, just to give you some context, what is happening is Jesus is beside a lake. Okay, he's sitting beside a lake, and he's speaking to a crowd of people. He's teaching a crowd of people. Now the crowd of people has swelled to be so much that Jesus had to keep retreating toward the lake, and then finally had to get into a boat, and that's how much the crowd had swelled to. And so he's sitting in a boat, and he's speaking. He's teaching these people. So he spends a whole day of teaching, and the evening of that day, this story begins the evening of that day. So it says that evening, Jesus said to his disciples, let's cross to the east side. So they're on one side of the lake, and he's saying, let's go to the east side of this lake. So they left the crowd, and his disciples started across the lake with him in the boat. Some other boats followed along. Suddenly a windstorm struck the lake. Waves started splashing into the boat, and it was about to sink. Jesus was in the back of the boat with his head on a pillow, and he was asleep. Weird, right? Weird. So storm, water coming into the boat, about to sink, and Jesus is sleeping on a pillow at the back of the boat. This is a scene of what it might have looked like. So not a very big boat, and of course the waves must have been big. Just to continue with the story, his disciples woke him and said, "Teacher, don't you care that we're about to drown?" Jesus got up and ordered the wind and the waves to be quiet. The wind stopped, and everything was calm. Jesus asked his disciples, "Why were you so afraid? Don't you have any faith?" Why were you so afraid? Don't you have any faith? Now, I have a problem with how this story ends. Jesus says, "You were afraid. Don't you have faith?" I'm thinking, should he have said, "Don't you have courage? Aren't you brave men? Aren't you fishermen who are used to storms? Don't you have confidence? Don't you have strength enough for this kind of storm?" And he says, "Don't you have faith?" So that's funny to me, because in the first two slides, when we said what is peace, and we said being confident, or being at rest, being calm, and the opposite of peace is fear and war and and unrest and uncertainty. And faith isn't listed as an opposite of peace or an opposite of fear, right? An opposite of fear. So this is interesting that Jesus says this. What do you think? What should when he says faith, what is he saying? What is Jesus referring to? Belief, yes, belief. Don't you have belief? Trust, okay. In the fact that they were fishermen. Faith, yes. So you're afraid, but you should have had faith. Jesus is referring to himself, right? I mean, he's not saying faith in the boat, to be able to withstand these waves and not sink. I mean, this is good wood. It's, from Galilee, it's, hard redwood. This wood doesn't sink, This wood doesn't sink. No, he's not talking about the boat, you see. He's not talking about, the storm. I've seen this storm 100 times. It's never sunk a boat. It's not going to sink a boat today. He's not saying, he's not talking about faith in the storm, right? He's talking about himself. He's talking about himself. Don't you have faith? Don't you have faith in me? And to the disciples, I'm thinking, it's if I was in the boat, imagine you were in the boat. Imagine you were in the boat, And what would you be thinking if Jesus said that to you? Don't you have faith? It's easy for you to say you were sleeping. I was trying to keep us afloat. You were sleeping. The disciples at this point of time had known Jesus for about maybe a year or two. So it's not like, bachpan ka dost, I know him forever and, I can trust him with my life kind of thing. They didn't know him all that well. It's been about a year or two. But by this time, they had seen Jesus work, and they had seen that, he had healed lame people. He had healed a paralyzed man. He had healed a man who had leprosy. He had healed a man who had a shriveled hand, and he made it whole. He even raised a young boy from the dead. He raised a young boy from the dead. And so they knew what Jesus was capable of, and so they were experienced in all these things that Jesus has done. And in fact, as fishermen, there was a time when Jesus had told them to fish, in a certain spot, and they had got so many fish. It's a miraculous catch of fish, and for them as fishermen, that was a miracle that came home to them, so real, because they now knew that Jesus had power over even nature, over fishes, and they could catch this huge catch of fish, because of Jesus. So they had some inkling, what was happening. But they're in this boat, and there are waves and the wind, and if how you can get caught up if you're in a Mumbai local, and I don't know if this has happened to you. It's happened to me. I've been hanging from a Mumbai local, and I was at this one point in time when I was hanging with my fingers like that, and the train started, and I had to make a choice. I had to either get inside the train or get off the train, And for some reason, I just, my brain froze, and I just didn't decide to do anything. I just kept hanging, and the train picked up speed. And then I was in a position where I couldn't get more in because people were just not moving in. And I couldn't get off because I looked down and the platform had finished from there. So I was thinking, now I'm gone. And I don't know what I did. I think I grabbed somebody's hair inside or something. And out of frustration, that guy pulled me in. So I let go of his hair. But for those few moments, I wasn't, I was saying God, but, it's hard to think. It's hard to think, and I'm thinking if I'm in this boat, and it's like, look at the size of that boat, and, the waves, and some of us who are in the Navy will know, some of these waves are huge, and I think that, we, boats and all compared to what the ocean is like are just so small, we think as man, we've got nature, we're conquering nature. But if you take the biggest, boats, ships that we have, an aircraft carrier, and you put it on a map, it's not even a dot on the ocean. That's how huge the ocean is. And so these waves are huge, and I'm thinking, if I was in that position, I would be very angry, first of all, that this guy is just sleeping and not helping to stay afloat. And then he gets up and gives me a lecture about having faith and, why didn't you just do this before? What were you waiting for? But then he says faith, and I'm thinking, really, faith. But he proves it, right? He speaks to the wind, he speaks to the waves, and they calm down. And they calm down. And so this is a new thing. I haven't seen this in Jesus before, that he's able to speak to even wind and waves and calm them down. And then see, I'm there in the boat, nothing would ever happen because I'm there in the boat. It's not trust in the waves or the wind, not trust in the boat. It's trust and faith in me. And because I'm in the boat, this boat would never sink. It's not really a very strange concept, to place our faith in someone and find our security or our, confidence or our peace, from this. I'll just skip this. This is a story of, a young boy, and some of you might know this story. And there's a group of botanists who had gone to a village, and, the village had a valley nearby, and at the bottom of the valley there were some flowers. And the botanists, because they were botanists, they wanted those flowers, but they didn't know how to go down to that valley and get it and all. And so they see this young boy of the village there, and they say, will you do us a favor? Will you go down and get us those flowers? Of course, the valley was steep. There was no way that you could actually climb down to the valley. So they said, okay, what we'll do is we'll tie a rope around your waist, and then we'll lower you down to the valley. If you do this for us, it'll be great. We'll give you $50. Of course, the young guy is happy. He's, he likes the adventure, the excitement. He wants to do it, but he's a little apprehensive over this whole rope around the waist thing. So he says, just hold on. And then he disappears for about 5 minutes. He comes back, and he comes with this slightly older gentleman, and that gentleman is his dad. And he says, I'll do it, but only if my dad holds the rope. Okay? So, he wants to do it. He's fairly confident of doing it, but he's just not sure about these botanists. I mean, these guys are a little old and, researchers and scientists. He doesn't know if they have the rope holding ability, and he doesn't know if he can trust them. But he knows if his dad's around, his dad's never going to let him go, and just because he knows it's his dad holding the rope, he can commit himself to something like this. So it's faith in a person, that gives him that confidence and that peace to go ahead and do something. How many of us have flown? How many of us have flown? Quite a few of us. How many of us have had turbulence when we've flown? Turbulence, plane shaking. Not many of us. Good. How many of us get scared when there's turbulence? I get scared. I get scared, yeah. I get scared. So you know what I do when I get scared? I look at the flight attendants. I look at them and I think, if they're looking scared, then there's a problem. But if they look okay, then that means this is normal, that this happens, So whenever there's turbulence, I look at them first, and I see them smiling back at me like this, and I think, okay, no problem. I think this is normal, this happens, And so word of advice, you should do that. If ever you get scared, look at the flight, and if they're looking scared, then, then you need to be scared. But if they look okay, then you're okay. So again, deriving my peace by just faith I have, in the flight attendants, that, if they look peaceful, then I have nothing to worry about. This is my daughter. This is when she was 1 month old, and you can see she's a little unpeaceful there. So even now she gets a little scared when there's, a loud sound or something. And when that happens, she sometimes tends to look towards me or towards her mother. And what we do is we smile back at her, just to let her know everything's fine, nothing's wrong. This is normal, this noise happens. And then she looks at us smiling, and then, then she smiles back. That's okay, it's fine. If they're smiling, then, then this noise is fine, And because she's able to have this childlike faith in us, she also has this childlike peace, and, literally sleeps like a baby, And so it's, life is very simple for her. Looks at us, we're happy, she's happy, and has this peace. So again, it's not very strange that, you would repose your faith in someone and from there derive your faith. So we do it for different things. We do it in when we're flying. It'll be a flight attendant. As children, it'll be our parents. If it's money, we trust our bankers to keep my money safe. To not go bust. To be there when I need the money. If it's insurance, trust that this insurance company will pay. When I need that money. Whatever it is, and we repose our faith on a daily basis on people. And from there derive peace that, I've entrusted my money to this bank, or I've paid, I've taken this insurance policy, or whatever it is. And then, we try to derive our peace from there. But what about life itself? Our life itself, and if you had like, if you had to think that, I'm trying to cover various aspects of my life, my money, my health, and my career and my future, and all these, kind of patches up, different parts of my life. But what about my life itself? If you were in that boat, if you were in that boat and there was a storm and there were waves crashing into your boat and your boat was about to sink and you had to place your faith in someone to get you out of that situation, who is that person today? Who is that person today? And that is a question I think we want to ask ourselves, because till we don't find that, will there be multiple anxieties that we'll have in multiple ways of us, trying to find peace, but they're just patchwork. It's just patchwork. There's different things for different problems, and every day there'll be a new problem, and you'll have to find something else to give you that peace. What about your life itself? If you had to get true life insurance, not just in this world, but even after this, if there's something, then what? Then what? In the olden days, the pharaohs, would sleep when they died. They would kill all the pharaoh's bodyguards as well and bury them along with the pharaoh. They'd kill the pharaoh's, the cats and pets and all of them, bury all of them, so that when the pharaoh rose in the next world, all of these people would be there with him, to give him company. And that's just to secure. That's his life insurance. That as I go into the next world, I have enough, gold and riches and people around me to secure that life as well. But what if there is life after this? Have we secured that? Have we thought about that even? If you were in that boat, who else would you want to be in that boat with you? And in this story, it's Jesus. And Jesus says, it's everything. It's the wind and the waves are the least that I can do. I command, I speak this on creation. And if I own creation, what else is there that is not in my control? So if we had to commit our life to one person and from there derive peace, who would that be? If you would look at the Bible, and it says here, it's just a few verses from it. It says, the Lord blesses his people with peace. Then it says, you will keep, and talking about God, you will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is steadfast because he trusts in you. In perfect peace. It's not peace of, 6 out of the 10 issues in my life, I've covered 6 of them. I have peace regarding 6. The other 4 I'm still trying to work out. I've got health insurance, life insurance, car insurance. I still have to figure out accident insurance. What if I get an accident? Or, I still have to cover my family in some kind of insurance. I've got blah amounts of money in the bank, but I need like maybe 5 more lakhs for me to, feel that, okay, I'm at peace. I've got like 4 degrees. I need a 5th degree to feel that, okay, my life is now going to be successful. I can achieve some amount of peace. So we're always striving, and we're always various issues. But what is perfect peace? What is perfect or complete peace? When the Bible uses the word perfect, it's also the word used for complete peace. That's what it says. And this verse here, it says, don't worry about anything, but pray about everything with thankful hearts. Offer your prayers and requests to God. Then because you belong to Christ Jesus, God will bless you with peace that no one can completely understand. And this peace will control the way you think and the way you feel. You think and the way you feel. You operate from a place of peace. It says it's a peace that no one can understand. You know why? Why no one can understand? Because you'll be like Jesus. You'll be in that boat and you'll be in the middle of a storm and there'll be waves crashing in and you'll be sleeping. You'll be sleeping on a pillow. And people will think, are you mad? Are you mad? Shouldn't you be worried? Shouldn't you be stressed? Shouldn't you be, striving to get yourself out of the situation? How can you just be sleeping? Because that is what you will be. And that is what this verse is saying. You will be. You will receive a peace that no one will completely understand, because it comes from God, from the confidence of knowing that, God's got my back, that Christ, I belong to Christ Jesus, and God will bless me with peace. So what do we want, to be in? Do you want this cycle of anxiety, and then you try some typical solution, and then maybe it leads to conflict, maybe you take it out on someone, or you continue to remain, or continue to find solutions, and then there's more anxiety, and then you keep going round and round, you knock one off, and another one turns up, you knock that off, and another one turns up, knock that off, and two more turn up, and so life is a constant battle. You just get on top of all the anxieties that are there. Or do you want this, where you have anxiety, you have faith in Jesus, He's in your boat, you have prayer, and you have thanksgiving, and you receive peace. So it all ends in peace. I'm not saying that anxieties will not come. They will come to each one of us. But each of them will end in peace. Each of them will end. We will take it, and it will end in peace. We won't have to relive these anxieties. That's the promise of Jesus. Today I want to ask, I want to speak to two sets of people here. There are those of us who know Jesus, who have Him in our boat, and if our life is that boat, and the ocean is the world and just life. If we are that boat, and that ocean is how our life is going to be, and there are going to be difficult times, and Jesus and we know Jesus. He's in our boat, but we're still scared. We're still frightened, and we're when you're getting frustrated at Him, and you say, why is He not doing anything? Why is He not saying anything? And we're striving to save ourselves instead of just having faith. Having faith in this someone whom we already know. He's already in our lives. He's in that boat of ours. And then those of us who don't know Jesus, and we're not sure entirely maybe who we want in that boat of our life. So maybe you're thinking, maybe this Jesus is worth a try. Maybe having Him in my boat, will make sense. Will secure me, will secure my life. And so two kinds of people. I'm going to end now, and we'll take a few questions, and then we'll just come back to just praying for ourselves, for those of us who know Him, for those of us who'd like to know Him. Okay. Questions?
You can just slip your hand up, and we'll bring the mic to you so you can ask your question.
William.
Okay, so you were saying like disciples didn't had peace, so they were worried and all.
Yeah.
What if they had peace? What would have happened? Like they were all in peace, and Jesus is sleeping. There's big storms and all.
Yeah.
They're all in peace.
Yeah.
What would have happened? Like storm would calm down by itself, or
Yeah. So I think, honestly, I think there wouldn't have even been a storm. I think sometimes, God introduces a certain situation in our life just to test that weakness that we have, so to build it into a strength. So I think if the disciples already had that kind of faith in Jesus, they wouldn't need that lesson, and maybe something else, but it wouldn't have been this storm. But I think because they needed to be taught that lesson to have faith in Jesus, hence the storm. Yeah.
Most of the times people say that a little stress is good. It makes you, facilitates your
Yeah.
performance and things like that. So my question is, should we be always like carefree, or Should we have that little stress in our life so that I don't know where to draw the line. So in
Yeah.
where should I give it to God and where should I do my part?
Yeah. So I think if I had to speak from my personal life, Nathan, do you want to? So if I had to speak from my personal life, I think that those little anxieties of everyday life continue to remain, and in some way they're good. If you mean they're a motivation for us to just not let ourselves slip up and not just kind of slack off or perform lesser than we would otherwise. And so that kind of anxiety that I might not do well, so I have to study. It's or that I don't have enough time. I'll have to prepare earlier than I thought. So we tend to just pace ourselves better when we have that sort of anxiety. But I think for me, what has happened is that with knowing Jesus, the largest question of my life has been answered. And that is of my life itself. And once that's answered, everything else is just minor details. And then as and when they come up, I'm stressed. I pray about it, and then either during the process or as I'm coming to the end of the process, I find peace from God. So like I said, the anxieties will not stop. Life is full of them, and every day you'll see one. But we're able to take that and ground it in peace. If I had to use that analogy of electricity finally being grounded somewhere, that you're able to take all these anxieties and ground it in peace. They don't resurface again and again. It's a good thing, but I think if the largest question of your life is settled, then then these things are so much more easier to take.
I think the key thing there also is the fact that when you have anxiety, we tend to kind of apply all our strategies, apply all our worldly knowledge, and play God in that situation and say, I'm going to deal with the situation myself. But the fact that we have a God who is there to help us with that situation and let Him be God is where lies our peace. And the fact that we know a God who is there to help us with that situation, and the fact that we don't have to strive, but just leave it to Him and say, Lord, I find my rest in you, so will you help me through this situation?
Okay, so I had a question very similar to Shiva's, and my question was, are you talking about peace like from everyday worries, or are you talking about like the bigger peace? And you partly already answered that question. So I'd like to ask you, can you give us an example from your life of how you've experienced this peace? Like just to make it a little more practical.
Okay. Right. So I have this piece about just a purpose that God has for my life, and I know that just from the time that I've spent with Him, that He's intended me, and I say this with all modesty, not because I think anything of myself, but He's intended me for greater things in my life, and that eventually He will take me to a place where I'm able to influence that at a national level even. So that is a confidence, that's a peace I have. Now recently what happened in my organization, I was promoted over, and so we're a set of senior managers, and then one of us was promoted up. I frankly thought I would be the one. It wasn't me, and so I spent about a good 2-3 months just being very anxious and just being very insecure about my role in the organization, and just questioning God and saying, how is this related to the larger plan? I thought I'd be on a roll, and I'd kind of within the next few years see that plan come to fruition. So it was a big setback for me emotionally, mentally, professionally. And so I went through a phase where I was questioning my supervisor, I was questioning myself, I was questioning my abilities. I was thinking, have I got it wrong? Is what God promised me different or wrong? But over the last 3 months, I've seen that it's been a teaching time for me. I've learned valuable lessons about just how to position myself in the environment I'm in the space that I'm in. And then over the last few weeks, and this is as recent as maybe 2 weeks ago, as I've been speaking to other senior leaders in my organization, they've given me projects and work that's restored some amount of confidence in that. I think they value me as a member of the organization. So I've just once again been reset in terms of just my confidence in terms of my my professional expectation of where I'll go with this organization. But it was a tough 3 months, and so I think like at an overall level, while I did doubt it a bit, but I was fairly sure that, God would still fulfill His larger promises for me, that to take me to a national level. But I didn't understand this minor phase, and so I was a little troubled. But then I've gotten over it, and I've now looked back. I think I've learned such valuable lessons.
Danny, for me, it's just more of a thought than a question. Sometimes at the workplace, people try to unsettle me. People try to come and kind of say, this is not going right, that's not going right. And they try to take the peace away. But the fact that we have a God who's in control, we tend to work out of a place of rest and a place of peace. But the opposite person kind of gets fluttered and says, how can this guy be at peace? Why is he not reacting? He has to react. You have to show pain. Or you have to show kind of an urgency, or you have to show aggression or some kind of a violent mechanism to react to that situation. And when they don't see that, they get even more angry with you. So sometimes it's difficult to handle when the other person doesn't know what or who the peace reason you is.
So I have a similar supervisor who just wants to fire us all up, and at the end of that meeting he expects all of us to rush out of that room and just start attacking all our problems. And if you calmly walk out of the room, he thinks, oh, you're not taking this seriously enough. I have found, again, just from my recent experience, that it helps to communicate. That sometimes we mistake peace as just not communicating, and I'm in my zone, and nothing can affect me, and we think not communicating is a sign of peace. And so, but that frustrates people who expect results, or want to see some visible signs of action. So I found that it helps to communicate, to tell them, look, I might not look like it, but I am going to do something about it. But it's not that I'm anxious about it. I'm confident we'll get through. So that gives them that measure of assurance that you're on it. Yeah.
Any more questions? Last one going. No? Okay.
So, okay, so then maybe I'll just ask the worship team to come up, and as they start playing, if we can just spend some time just introspecting, just thinking, and where do we lie on that, on that spectrum? Again, just going back to that boat, if our lives at boat, is Jesus already in our boat, and are we still anxious? Because that's a paradox. That's something that you want to correct today, and just tell Jesus that I'm sorry. You've been in the boat, and I've still been anxious. I've still been worried. I've still been uncertain, and I've still been confused, and I've still thought that I don't have peace. So just confessing that to God, and then we'll pray. And then there are those of us who are just thinking, who is this guy Jesus, and maybe I'll want him on my boat. Maybe it's a good idea. He seems to have everything, and you want to ask Jesus and say, would you come into my life? Would you step into my boat? There are storms. I'm having a tough time. All those signs of what is not peace. I relate to one or more of those descriptions, and I want to see how what you can do about it in my life. And so if those of us are there like that, I invite people from both groups to stand up, so that we so that we're not just singled out. But if for those of us who know and want to know, if we can stand, I'm going to ask Nathan. We'll sing this song maybe, and then we'll just want to pray for you.